and Eric on the rollout. Oh!
What you've just seen illustrates how a true champion, whether in football or in life, comes out on the top of his game. Like Eric Hipple says, when you get knocked down, you need to get back up again. If you're from Michigan and you like football like I do, then you've no doubt heard about the legendary Lions quarterback, Eric Hipple. You might know that he led the Lions to 2 playoff bids and a divisional championship. And in 1981, he was voted MVP. He's also known for taking one of the hardest hits a quarterback has ever taken in a game. But what you might not know about this tough, disciplined athlete is that in 1997, he attempted to take his own life, which proved to be a real game changer for him. Here with us today is that extraordinary man to talk with us about how his life went from an unbelievable high to an almost insurmountable low, and how he turned that experience into a new life of mental wellness and advocacy. Eric, welcome to My Healthy Mind.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it.
Eric, your life is like watching a movie where you were a national hero on the football field, an international spokesperson and advocate for men's mental health. How does your journey begin? What does it look like? Not from a career perspective. A lot of us know your career and your stats, but what about your personal life, your family, and your history? Tell us about that.
Well, I'll leave the football part out of it. Since you called me legendary, I'll let that go. Okay, so I really appreciate that. No, transitions are tough, and I think one thing through all of this is understanding that people go through transitions, but we don't really pay enough attention to them. And mine, when I was done with the Lions, I've been playing football since probably 10 years old. And every fall you put a uniform on, and this is your identity. And I was cut at age 32, and I didn't know what to do. I poured into a business that I knew nothing about. And so it's kind of exciting for a while. And as I built that business up and became really successful, and then when it happened, it was almost like just the bottom dropped out. Who am I? This isn't me. I didn't really want to be, that person selling insurance and not anything wrong with it. It's just compared to what I had done before, it wasn't there. And I started falling flat. I started isolating. I started not being motivated. Started avoidance stuff. And I didn't want to call on people. And that all culminated into a time when my wife was driving to the airport, and it was pretty impulsive. But it was these thoughts that I've been having, over and over and over in my head that I just didn't feel good, and people would be better off without me. That's my self-esteem had fallen that low. I think that was probably the culminating big difference. But it started happening to me before I left. When I look back on it, before I left football, I'd had a bunch of injuries, and then my last year, mid-season, I finally got my starting job back, and I played horrible. And I just realized, I can't do this anymore. They cut me, the next day. And so I think nobody leaves the way they want. There's very few exceptions. I will say there's few, but very few exceptions where a professional athlete leaves the way they want to leave. Never made it to the Super Bowl. Never. Those things that ricochet, and then getting cut the way it happened. It's just all of a sudden you're on the outside. This is something I was on the inside, and I'm on the outside, and so that transition. That's kind of where I think it started. I'd gone through divorce. So my son and daughter were living with my ex-wife. Then my son would come live with me for a year, then go back and live with her. I got remarried, which was like the greatest thing in the world for me. She's fantastic and super, and we're still married today, and closer than ever. But that time in my life when that happened, I got excited about something new, something different. But then when it got old, it was only 6 years, into it, and just completely devoid of emotion, feeling, nothing, So I did some mess. I started self-medicating a little bit, along the way and stuff. And then, quite frankly, we're driving to the airport, and it was just hopeless feeling like this is how it's going to be from now on. I don't think I can do this. And I wrote a quick note to my wife, I'm sorry, I love you. And I jumped out of the car. We were going 75 miles an hour when I hit the pavement.
And when you say that everybody will be better off without me, or I'm not being able to be helpful anymore, is that because you felt like, hey, it's my job to fix everything and make everything right prior to that? Or was that just that, hey, I don't know what I'm doing all of a sudden?
I think you touched on a really important key, especially men, where we get in this position of we like to, I don't say control so much, but we like to fix things. We like to be the guy. We don't want to be the person that's responsible, that's taking care of somebody and taking care of your family and we want to be that person. And I didn't feel like, even though we were making money, I just didn't feel like I was that person. And I just felt like, they'd be better off without me. Yeah, and that's just the mindset.
And nobody picked up on it again, just...
No, because I didn't talk about it. I kept it to myself. There were some things that were, my wife, I think, was picking up on, drinking a little bit more and stuff like that, where, and not wanting to leave the house, not wanting to go call on people. But, she's sensitive, she doesn't know, she's like, hey, I was this great star. I must know everything, you know what I mean? And so I was pretty high up there on a pedestal for a while, and so she didn't really interact, didn't try to engage and find out what's going on. She just kind of let it be until that happened. And then she tried to, do things. But at that point, it's like, when I got out of the hospital, it was like, psh, yeah, we're not talking about this. I'm fine. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
And so when you jumped out of the car and went to the hospital, what happened then? Like, what were you thinking in that moment, or what was that transition like?
Well, I woke up and I was all bandaged up, from the tumble, and I had a concussion, but also some surgery and stuff had to happen. But I woke up, and that's the conversation is with a psychiatrist in the room, and my parents were in the room, and they're having these. I didn't want any part of these conversations. No. I am not going to go inpatient. No, I'm not going to talk about mental health or my mental illness. Really, we're not going to have that discussion. I'm fine. I'm good now. I'm ready to go. Just shove it aside.
And so what was the paradigm shift for you? Just start talking about it and then start getting help and eventually get to where you are today.
Yeah. I did talk to one counselor, but it was kind of like your ADHD, and so it's about that. It wasn't about, and I've never seen myself as being that, but that's kind of what they tagged it to, because why this erratic behavior? And so I kind of felt I was kind of misdiagnosed, but that didn't last long. That was only an attempt to get anything done. We're going to push it away and shove it away. So then for about 3 years, that's how I was, yeah. And then about every symptom that I had, and they were there, but like I said, if you're not educated on them, you don't know what to look for. When my son was living with me, he started going through those as well. And not ever, reaching out and finding out more about him. I just didn't have the right language, didn't have the right skill set, and he didn't either. And unfortunately, when he was 15 years old, he took his life. And in that moment was killer to me. I remember looking at his body in the morgue, and my thought was, oh, I can't live with this. There's no way. The guilt was just overpowering, and the pain hurt so bad. But I also realized that, before, like when I jumped out of the car, that people would be better off. That's what I thought. But now I know they're not, because standing next to his body, excuse me.
Take your time.
Standing next to his body was it hurts, and so I don't want to do that to anybody. So I took that off the table, and instead I just decided just to be numb, and so that was the I started self-medicating really heavy then. Yeah.
And when you were going through the self-medication part, were you recognizing in yourself, like, hey, I didn't want to feel this hurt? Am I getting further away from that hurt, or am I, what am I going to do about this?
Exactly. I had no idea what to do about it except just be numb, and that's what I was trying to do, And I was still making money, so so that wasn't an issue. That was still happening, but I was numb, through that whole about a year. Just, it's just about anything I get my hands on, really, and because I, couldn't face it, didn't want to feel it, and that's a problem, because you have to experience pain to get through it. Right, and so otherwise you don't get through it. You just keep dragging it all out. And I finally got arrested and picked up on a DUI. And while I was in jail, was the true game changer, because it gave me a chance to sit down and look at all these other guys that are sitting in here, and everybody had an excuse, everybody had a reason why they're here, and it dawned on me, oh my gosh, am I one of those guys? I'm here because my son died. That gives me the right to behave this way and to act this way, and I did not want to be one of those guys. And so I vowed when I got out that I'd start asking questions. I'd get, well, I want to find out what happened to him. I want to find out what happened to me. I want answers for this stuff. And so I was pretty motivated when I got out was to start asking questions. And the first thing I did was suicide prevention. I wanted to be able to save a life and understand that. And so some of the symptoms of, suicide and stuff, and they matched everything I went through. They matched what he was going through. And then I ended up with a great invitation from a doctor. I was doing some work with Mental Illness Research Association at the time, and he invited me to a lunch and learn at University of Michigan. And I went there, and it was like opening a new door. And so these doctors were talking at this lunch and learn about depression and brain chemistry and the changes, the symptoms. And it was like, oh my gosh. And it's like, that's it. I was even angry at first though, because why aren't we talking about this everywhere? Right. This is because life-saving stuff.
So Eric, your professional football career is finished. You've changed careers, you've gotten remarried, and then this incident happens. But people that are watching are saying, hey, if you have to be that tough on the football field, you have to be tough both mentally and physically. So how do you not win, or how do you not compete with both?
Being mentally tough, okay, and physically tough are easy to point out. Okay, I get knocked down, I get back up again. I shake things off. That doesn't mean you're mentally healthy. And I think that's where the difference is. I mean, there's a lot of mentally tough people, okay, that are doing really tough things. If you look at our military, for example, okay, but that doesn't mean, coming back through a transition or a deployment or maybe, some sort of trauma, that you're healthy. And that's the key point. You want to be both. You want to be mentally tough and mentally healthy. But then that doesn't always happen, right? So I consider myself very tough. At that time, I was not mentally healthy.
I like that, because just because I'm tough doesn't mean I'm healthy, and that physically and mentally.
In fact, if we start looking at it that way and say, I'm tough, I can handle anything. Well, maybe you can, right? But if you don't, take care of yourself, at some point in time, there's something that can take you down, and when it does, you might not recover from it. And so there's more than just being tough. It's also about, maintaining yourself as well.
And then taking that winning attitude and saying, hey, I got knocked down. What was getting up like for you in this instance?
Getting up for me, it took a while, man, but it was, because I had to look at this whole thing from a mental health point of view. And I had to get rid of the guilt, with not, because it gets in the way of grief. So that's not healthy either. So I had to kind of, forgive myself, forgive that portion of it, and forgive Jeff. I mean, there's a lot of forgiveness that was going around. But mostly it was just to accept what happened and accept him for how he lived, not how he died, and then to grieve him properly. So that was the main part of getting back up again. But then it was knowledge. It was finding out, from mental health professionals, from, I don't care, psychologists, caseworker, anybody that's in that field, of learning about that field and how we get stuck and get trapped. And a lot of times, if you don't have the information, then you can't fix it. And that's a tough thing.
And we as men like to fix it.
Yeah, we do.
And it's interesting because as you're talking, you seem to be so absorbed and so genuine and passionate about it. It's like you got it. And now that you have it, you obviously want to give it away.
It is, because I feel I'm probably the most mentally healthy I've ever been. We have a really mentally healthy family. My daughters are all mentally healthy. We all communicate. We all talk. We're all on the same page with stuff, and so it just makes life so much, not easier, but enjoyable.
My job was causing me so much stress.
I felt disconnected and frightened.
I felt so isolated.
I was beginning to feel trapped, depressed. I never expected that to happen to me.
We think nobody else feels the pain that we feel, but that is so untrue.
It's good to be able to talk about it.
I was able to seek help. I found it from Team Wellness.
It's a sense of freedom.
Team Wellness Center. You are not alone.
You know, guys are different. You know, guys like to fix things, right? And so, you know, how do you fix this? You know, well, first of all, you got to know what it is, right? So, what is happening with you? If you're not sleeping well, if you do get agitated easily, you know, maybe you get headaches and things like that. What is that about? Okay. Well, I'm going to go see a doctor. Well, most guys don't. Okay, right? If I break my ankle, I'll go see a doctor. Okay, but other than that, yeah, I can deal with it. I'm tough, right? But identify what's going on first of all. Okay, and then that gives us the ability to say, okay, now that I know what it is, oh my gosh, okay, what do I do about it? And that's the piece. If you think about, you need tools. You know, you need things around you to understand. It'd be like trying to fix something, right, without the right tools. I can't build a house with just a hammer. I can build part of a house with a hammer, you know, and some nails and stuff, but I can't build a house without it. And I think about how to fix things, you know, that are really complicated. You know, when I was a teenager, I could work on my car. I could pop the hood up, I could change the plugs, I could work the carburetor, I could change the clutch, I could do all that stuff, right? Okay, it was pretty simple cars were back then. Today, okay, if I pop the hood of my car, wow, I have to take it to a professional. It's that complicated. This thing up here is complicated. You know what I mean? So we can identify maybe what's going on, the symptoms, but when we come to fix it, sometimes we have to, you know, go to a professional or understand what's going on.
And so some of the tools that are available today are what to use in our toolbox. So I know I need to fix it. I know what it is. I even know I need tools.
Right. So tools can be many things for yourself as an individual. You know, mindfulness training, which is about being in the moment and not the worry and the worried about things that happened or worried about things that's going to happen. It's about being in the moment and appreciating this moment right here and being in our, you know, feeling comfortable in our bodies and who we are. So it's about that kind of identity. It's also, you know, keep a log. You know, if you're trying to identify what's going on, what are the nights you're not sleeping? You know, we wear stuff like Fitbits and things like that for information. So if I'm not sure, then, you know, put some of the information down. Also, don't be hard on yourself. Admit you're human. You know, don't be in denial, because a denial is avoidance, right? And if we can't avoid things forever, and it's not healthy to avoid. It makes us anxious, and when we're anxious, guess what we want to do? We want to avoid, and when we're avoiding, we're being anxious. And so there's a whole lot of things to avoid. There's alcohol use to avoid. There's substance use to avoid. There's location avoidance. You know, there's you know, creating drama, so you don't have to worry about. I'll worry about this, not about what's going on with me. And so those are some of the things that we, you know, that we can do. The other thing is also assessments. You know, there's trying to figure out what is going on. You know, I might log down, you know, the symptoms that I might have, but what does it mean? And so you can go on certain sites and stuff. There's healthy, well, your own site, right? And there's also Healthy Men Michigan, if we're talking about men specifically, .org, that has assessments on it. One of the toolkits, depressioncenter.org. That's University of Michigan Depression Center. It's depressiontoolkit.org. Has all kinds of information and videos on there on how to identify. And so you can take an assessment and say, aha, now I know what it is or what it looks like.
And I think that sometimes as men, that's the other thing that we miss, is being comfortable talking to someone else about it.
Yeah, men don't have the same social circles that like women do, where they want to share everything. You know, you know, when you walk into a room as a man, you're kind of you're sizing it up because it's just what you do, right? As a man, you know, you size things up in case, you know, for whatever case, well, I don't know what it is, but you are measuring yourself, right? Okay. It's funny if you talk about the way men and women communicate differently. You know, men also, if they see that they're not going to win, oftentimes they'll disengage, right? And so if, you know, the old thing with a bat, you know, who's going to go on first? And if you're getting ready to go and you look like you're going to be the last one, you know. But women do this. And then the one goes on top, it's me. And they go, oh, that was so funny how we did it. Oh, you're the one, you know. And they'll talk about it as opposed to what men do.
Yeah, we try to fix it or avoid it.
fix it, or if I can't fix it, then it doesn't exist.
Yeah, it
right?
doesn't exist. Or it gets in my pile of stuff to fix.
That's right. Yeah. And sometimes that pile can get pretty big. If you think about the things that get on our pile, maybe it's a financial thing. Maybe also there's a little trouble relationship. Maybe it's stress, at work, but that pile can get pretty big. And if you don't fix them, one at a time, or fix them when they come, we just keep piling up. That's when we can crash, and find ourselves in a bad place.
And also, as I'm listening to you, it seems like you developed a hunger to learn as much as possible about yourself and this industry of mental illness. So how would you recommend that another guy gains that same motivation?
I think to look at it from a point of view of problem solving. Our brain is just a vast potential, okay? And learning is one of the things it does really well, but it also loves to problem solve. And so if I present it as a problem, hey, listen, this is interfering with my life, my relationships, anything else, how do I fix it, okay? And treat it that way, then I want information. If I were to say, hey, we're gonna go back and build a swing for the kids, right? Oh, cool. Where's the plans? What do we need? Oh, we need lumber. We need this. Okay, and we go out there and we build it, right? And so it almost approaches the same way as how do you solve this problem? And so you start looking at the game plan. You start looking at the tools that you might need, and realize that you can't do it alone, and that's not a bad thing. I think in this particular thing, being vulnerable is a good thing, and getting some close friends or somebody you can go to, a good support system or network, whatever that might look like for you. But use it. Yeah.
And I like that you said that you can't do it alone, so get somebody else to help you. Because if I was building a swing set, I would need someone else to help, right?
Right, yeah.
And where have you found that it's easiest to even get that help in the family? Because a lot of times, like when you were telling your story, I'm like, okay, what were the people around you doing as you were going through it? And are they a resource for us?
Families can be a great resource, but sometimes it can be a stumbling block as well because of the investment that you have in a person. In other words, a husband-wife relationship or any partner relationship, really. One is usually, working towards a certain thing, and so they get support that way. But if all of a sudden it looks like, we're going to have a falling off or something's going to happen, I don't want that to happen, so maybe I won't bring that issue up. Because I don't want to, I don't want it to hurt our relationship, and so I don't want to do that. I'll just kind of go along with it, and we end up with, like enabling a person, or maybe a codependent situation might strike up that way. So, so sometimes family is really great, but I would also have somebody that's on the outside that can actually see the whole picture, and so the relationship might be part of the problem. When you're dealing with mental illness, oftentimes those relationships are complicated.
And when you were dealing with your relationships, what specifically in your toolbox can you point to and say, you know what, this thing right here is what helped that relationship survive?
Actually looking at myself and being honest and then saying, yeah, this is what's been happening, this is how I've been feeling, and sitting down and talking to her. It was kind of scary because I didn't want to scare her, but she's wonderful. She responded in a super supportive way. Not in a negative way, and not in, well, something's broken with you, and I'm leaving. Okay. And I wouldn't blame her if she would have at the time. But just, she's been super. And to me, that's really what makes me really, really mentally healthy now, is because I've got a great partner and a great family. So when it's right, and when you've worked all this stuff out, it's beautiful. But it took me to say, I'm kind of broken, and I coming out of jail, so let's sit down and talk about this stuff. And then that's what opened me up to be able to go to treatment, be able to talk about this stuff, to be able to take this job, to be able to talk about this stuff. It takes, a healthy partner to support that. We all have a story, whatever that story is, we have one. And you learn from other people, so asking people their story, if they've gone through tough times, who their mentors are, and just picking up information. It's actually basically being human, and making eye contact and talking with people, and we have this wonderful ability in our heads called empathy when we feel another person, And that's really what drives a human being, that connection. Social media oftentimes it takes you away from that, but actually talking to a person, you feel connected, you don't feel alone, and you can learn something. Yeah.
And I also want to take a little bit from your book about crying. How important is it to cry? As a man, I'm saying.
Yeah, well, there's a time and place for everything. And to say, well, I'm not going to cry is not healthy. We can train ourselves for certain times, especially in grief work. Like I pick a time that I'm going to just let it out, and maybe that time every day is when I do that. So I can train myself so I don't have to cry in the middle of the day when I'm at work, when it might be embarrassing. I can do it that evening, but you got to do it. You got to have that time and place to be able to unload and to do it, wherever that might be. For me, it was lighting a candle, 6 o'clock at nighttime, at the end of the day, and coming back and just pouring it out. In fact, my whole family, we all started doing that, around this candle and telling stories and stuff. And then it grew until we didn't have to light it anymore, and the stories turned into something, really positive and accepting Jeff for, the way he lived, not the way he died.
And I'm glad you said that transition, because my follow-up question is, how important is it for laughter in that same recovery?
Oh man, it's huge. Yeah, I mean, it kicks off all kinds of endorphins. It helps us connect even greater to share a laugh with somebody. Laughter is really, really important. Smiling is important. You know what I mean? When we talk about mental health and mental illness, it doesn't have to be a sad story all the time. And unfortunately, that's what some people think. Oh, I don't want to hear that story. But no, it isn't. It's about life. It's about going through the ups and downs. It's about, experiencing life, which sometimes can be painful. But that's what crying's for. It's the same thing with laughter's for, to enjoy and also to work through the pain.
Eric, you're an amazing individual. I'm so proud of you, and I really appreciate the time that you've given us. This is something that everybody needs to hear, because if we reach into that toolbox, then we can fix ourselves. And if we can fix ourselves, we can help somebody else fix themselves too.
Well, what you do is important work, and I appreciate being on this show and getting a chance to share some of this stuff. It's really, really important. Thank you.
If you'd like to talk or read more about this or any mental health issue, please reach out to us on our website, myhealthymind.com, through Twitter at myhealthymind, or on Facebook. We'll see you next week for another edition of My Healthy Mind. Let's talk about it.